What's up YouTube? Jason here with Byte My Bits. Today I'm going to give you everything you need to know about starting your very own Plex Media Server. At least I hope I'm going to give you everything. If I miss something, just make sure you scream at me in the comments. I'm going to start off with what Plex actually is, then the hardware you should be thinking about, and I'm going to wrap everything up with installation and configuration. Now, I'm gearing this to a probable use scenario, and it's possible that the path that I chose, albeit more common, could differ from your own. Good news is that even if my path is a little bit different, you're still here for a reason, and you could still possibly find some of the information useful. This video will have a lot of steps and information, so it might be a little long. To help with this, I'm going to put two nifty little buttons on the bottom here that'll let you skip forward or rewind. Skip forward and rewind. The boring button will take you forward, and as you might have guessed it, the wait what button will take you in the opposite direction. So use them wisely, Grasshopper. I don't know if I use that wisely. Now, if you've seen the Mastering Your Plex Server video that I made, you might be asking yourself, why are you going to make another one? It's a good question. It's pretty simple actually. While I was trying to give advanced or existing users methods to take their server just a little bit farther, I quickly realized that it would have been better to start from the basics and work my way up. So while I might touch on a few subjects again, the goal of this video is to guide any new user down the path of plexiness. Yes, that's a word. Maybe. On some subjects, however, I may defer you to the other video just to get a little bit more information. Let's get started at ground zero. What the heck is Plex and why do I want it? Well, Plex is a media server built to make the world of serving media really freaking easy. It basically allows you to watch your movies, your TV shows, pictures, or even listen to music off of your computer to things like TVs or smartphones. And it's not limited to that either. There's a bunch of different clients, but we'll jump on that just in a little bit. The real question is, why do you want it? Well, if you have a large collection of movies sitting around somewhere on a shelf and would love access to any of them, anytime you want to, from anywhere, you might want Plex. If you either have or are building a collection of home videos or pictures and you want to share those instantly with friends or family, you might want Plex. If you want to take over the world and convince everyone to call you Pleximus Maximus, then you could start with Plex. Moving on. Well, that's cool and all, Jason, but how does something like this even work? Funny you should ask. I was actually going to tell you. Plex uses three main components to work at its best, but only needs two of them for its root functionality. Let me explain on that just a little bit. The first main part is the actual Plex Media Server program installed to a desktop PC, a network-attached storage device, or even a standalone server. This program takes any media files that you choose, bundles them together in a nice neat little package, and broadcasts them over the network using a service called DLNA. Now, an explanation of DLNA could be a video all in itself, but for now, just know it's used to play your media while in home. The second part to this tripod of plexiness is the client. Plex has many different clients designed for many different types of hardware. The client reaches out to the Plex server, asks what media is available, shows you the option, and then plays whatever you choose. Examples of Plex-supported hardware would be the Amazon Fire TV, the Roku, or Xbox. And we could be here for a long while because it's a pretty long list. The third and final piece, though, to complete your awesomeness of Plex is the Plex Central Servers. This is the part that Plex really doesn't need to work while inside your home, or more specifically on the same network, but to get the full experience and easy use that Plex has to offer, you will need to have a Plex account to log into. Doing this uses their servers as a central communication point connecting devices outside of your home network, allowing you to pull your media anywhere you are. The Plex account itself is free, but they do offer a premium service that includes a few more features. You may or may not want these extra features, but you should make an account anyways. I mean, it is free. So let's overview. You have your Plex Media Server at home. You have a Plex client installed on a device inside of your home. These usually talk to each other automatically. And then you have a central Plex server that allows you to connect clients from outside of the home. It's pretty simple, right? Now, you understand your Plex, and you may know that you want it. Now you have to start planning your server. This could be really simple or somewhat complicated depending on your needs. So what exactly are your needs? Well, to find out, you're going to have to think about who do you want to have access to your stuff. Is it just you, your friends, your family, and what kind of stuff will you have? Photos, videos? I'll break that down for you. You have to know who you want to have access to your stuff. If it's only you, then things could be really simple. If you want to share your awesomeness plexiness, then you'll have to plan for it. For every person you share with, you're going to have to count them as a possible stream if you're sharing videos. Every active stream you have could mean you need a little bit more processing power on your computer to serve it. Plex does a magic little number with videos called transcoding. Now, transcoding is the primary resource hog that you're going to need to plan for when you're building your own media server. But what exactly is transcoding and what does it do? Well, it takes your media files and converts them on the fly to a usable format and quality that your client can actually handle and/or request. Plex can direct play files under certain circumstances, but more times than not, it has to transcode them to be a usable format. This is the magic of Plex because it handles everything automatically. Alright, so you understand the software side, but what about the hardware? Well, you have three options. You can install Plex on a network-attached storage device, or a NAS. You can install it on a personal or a spare computer to run in the background of your daily activities, or you could build your own standalone server. I want to take this down to two options because really you could use the same hardware guidelines to build a standalone server by just not using it as a daily computer. Unless, of course, you want to go all out server grade components with, rack mounts and a bunch of other fancy stuff. If that's you though, you probably don't need my guidance. First off, I have to say that if you want to install Plex on a store-bought NAS, then you might be setting yourself up for a bad time. And here's why. A NAS, by design, does not focus on processing power. Plex uses a lot of processing power. So installing Plex on a NAS could result in not even being able to stream one high-definition video, depending on the NAS, of course. It's not impossible, but for the same price as some of the NAS boxes out there, you could just build a small, standalone home server and get much more out of it. Speaking of building your own server, what kind of hardware should you be shopping for? Well, first things first, pick your CPU. Remember, Plex is heavily reliant on CPU power. It needs it for the transcoder. The more streams you have planned, the more power you need to shop for. Plex has actually come up with a nice little way to guesstimate your CPU needs using a software website called Passmark. The software is basically a benchmarking program that rates CPUs by marks. So go ahead and head on over to www.passmark.com. Click on the benchmarks and then find the link that says search for your CPU model. Once there, type in the model number of your CPU and find out what the score is. For me, I'm going to search for an old CPU that I have, the Q9550. I'll quickly find out that my CPU has a mark score of a little over 4,000. That's not very high, I know, so don't laugh at me. So you found your CPU score, but now you need to understand how to use that. Plex has put out a guideline saying that for every 1080p stream you have, you should account for about 2,000 marks, and 1,500 marks for every 720 stream you have. So if you have two people wanting to watch that 1080p high definition video of you running around with your cat, you're going to need a CPU with a Passmark score of 4,000 or more. Looks like my old CPU might be able to keep up. So from this knowledge, you can start shopping for a CPU in your price range and check to see how it measures up. Keep in mind though that these Passmark score requirements from Plex do have a little bit of give in them. I know this because I've used my old CPU for almost 1,000 marks over what Plex said I could do. It doesn't happen all the time, but it's just not always as simple as adding a few numbers up. Video comes in all shapes and sizes. There's different containers like MKV, MP4, there's encoding methods, audio formats, the list can go on. On top of all that, depending on your client, Plex might not even have to work very hard to push the content out. Something called direct play, which means the format is 100% compatible with your client, requires almost no CPU power. Direct stream, which is almost direct play but with only a container mismatch, can stream with very little CPU power. It's the full-on transcoding that really stresses your CPU out. While we're in the area here, don't skip out on cooling. Maybe pay just a little bit more for that aftermarket heatsink and fan combo, or maybe even go to a little off-the-shelf water cooler if you want to. I only say this because at peak times, your CPU could be running at near full capacity if you have a busy server. This happens to me sometimes, and I just didn't like how my CPU was hovering around 85 degrees Celsius. A cheap aftermarket setup did the trick and brought it down to 60 degrees at full load. Bringing down these temperatures will help your CPU from throttling itself and last longer, so overall boost of performance. Now on to one of my favorite subjects, storage. I can't tell you how many drives I have because, to be honest, I haven't really sat down and counted them all. But what I can tell you is what you should look for in a hard drive and some things that you should be considering. Before we get into all that though, we need to figure out how much storage you even need. And I'm not just talking about what you need now. I also mean what you're planning for in the near future. Starting simple, if you're only looking to Plex for like a basic setup to maybe share a few photos, some small home videos, stream a couple albums, whatever, then you might not need a lot of space. Something like this could be done with maybe 2 or 3 terabytes of data or even less. If this is you, then I recommend to grab a pair of either 2 or 3 terabyte hard drives and RAID them together in a mirror, otherwise known as RAID 1. This will serve to protect your data with a full backup while letting you stream from them. If you have more need for storage, then let's move on. I'm going to focus on high definition movies as a calculation source. So let's say that a high def movie at 1080p with great quality bitrate would run on average 8 gigabytes. Now I know, you can get them as small as 1 gigabyte or a complete rip at over 30 gigabytes, but I can't tell you what every movie will be, so I have to pick a median. What I recommend though is look into either RAID 5 or even better, RAID 6. You can do more research on these to learn the difference, but to keep it simple, a RAID 5 can use 4 drives and give you the space of 3 of them with the potential of any one of them failing. RAID 6 is similar, but you can lose 2 of them instead of just 1 and still be okay. I only go down this path because if you value your data at all, you want to have some form of protection. I also have a video that goes a little bit more into data backups that you can watch here, but let's move on. Solid state drives, or SSDs, are one of the biggest boosters to computer performance. Using one as your boot drive and installing Plex on it will automatically make everything run faster. I have to warn you though, if you have a large amount of media, like let's say 1,500 movies and 75 full TV series, then your Plex data folder can get well over 10 gigabytes. So you need to make sure that you plan for this. In my video, Mastering Your Plex Server, I go more into depth on hard drive selection and its relation to Plex. I recommend you checking it out after this video. Now, part of every new computer build is memory. The good news here though is that Plex is not really heavily dependent on memory. All you have to do is get a reasonable amount of memory to operate your system with. If you plan on running Plex on your main computer, then just plan for whatever your regular needs are. I always feel that a sweet spot is right around 16 gigabytes, but it's all up to you. I must talk about your network connection though. If there's any way to avoid it, do not rely on Wi-Fi for your media server. There are some cases if you're running a small scale server with a few files and maybe one client, you won't have any issues. But if you want to serve any more, you're going to be lining yourself up for a headache. It's cheap to run a cable, so try to figure a way out to do it. Again, not impossible to use Wi-Fi, just not recommended. Wi-Fi can be way too unpredictable sometimes. Here's a good question. Do you even need a video card? I mean, Plex is all about the video, right? Well, the answer is yes and no. If you're building a standalone server, something to sit inside the closet, somewhere with no monitor attached to it, then you don't really need a beefy video card. Plex only processes the video. The clients are the ones that play it. But from a technical standpoint, you will need to get either a really cheap video card, like 30 bucks, or find a motherboard with onboard video. After all, you do still need to get it working, and most boards won't boot without it anyways. I think that covers all the hardware-related starting points. While there are more things to building a new PC, this video is focused on things that might relate to Plex, so I'm trying to keep it simple for you. As you can imagine though, there are some pretty serious homemade servers out there. I personally would love to throw together a huge media server and make a build blog about it, but I'm not rich. A huge media server would be something like, 15 to 20 6 terabyte hard drives with a Xeon processor or 2. Can only dream. Moving out of my fantasy world though, we should be thinking a little bit about your operating system. Now, I'm a Windows guy, and I love Windows because it's simple and it's compatible with so many things. So running Windows 7, or maybe even in the near future Windows 10, will always be my prime choice. And no love for Windows 8. Windows 8 to me is like, well, it's like Windows Vista or Windows ME. If you enjoy something more complicated like Linux, then I won't have much for you. I can tell you though that Linux might actually give you access to more resources to transcode because it can be a much lighter weight operating system. A nice hybrid between Linux and the easy use would be something called FreeNAS. Now this can be a video all in itself, and I hope to actually throw one of those together once I find some more hard drives. They're all kind of being used. So what kind of internet speed am I going to need for all of this? Well, depending on where you live, this could actually be a problem. The good news is that Plex clients can change their quality settings to a lower bit rate so you can work better with what you have available. Full HD bit rates could be 15 megabits a second, while an SD rate could be somewhere along the lines of 1.5 megabits a second. With that said, as an example, you could configure 4 people to only draw 1.5 megabits each with an HD stream for a total of 6 megabits per second upload speed. Keep that in mind, as of right now, you can only configure the bitrate options client side. So if you're setting up a friend or a family member to watch your cat videos, you're going to want to make sure you don't forget those settings. Speaking of clients, there are many options for you, too many to go out there. But I'm going to try to get you started with what I know. That is, after all, the point of this video. First off, Plex can be watched through any browser using the Plex.tv website. This is great if you're on a computer, but for something really easy on your TV, you could look at the Fire TV from Amazon. I actually have one and it works pretty well. I like it because of the awesome remote, but I shelved it in favor of my Xbox One app. You can even look into something called a Roku. I've heard those run well, but I don't actually have one myself. In a future video, I'm going to do some comparison reviews on a few popular devices. The great thing about Plex though is that they try to keep a consistent feel in all of their apps to always make people feel at home when they're using them. I do want to say that if you want to go all out with an HTPC or a home theater personal computer, Plex has a full-featured program called Plex Home Theater. This would be my #1 choice if I didn't already have an Xbox. Before I walk you through how to install Plex in Windows, I want to recommend that you go to Plex.tv first and create a free Plex account. I'll talk about the Plex Pass option a little bit later. Alright, so let's get Plex installed. Okay, this is pretty simple, but let's go ahead and get started. First thing you need to do is go over to Plex.tv. Once there, look for the download link at the top of the page. You can pick either computer or NAS, so for this example I'm going to pick the computer, and since I'm English, I'm going to pick English. Alrighty, once this finishes downloading, go ahead and open it up and start the installation. So we're going to go ahead and click install. There we go, pretty simple. Go ahead and click launch. Alright, so we're going to go ahead and accept these terms of service on the first launch. Click I agree. Now to start your basic setup, you have to give your server a friendly name. So I'm going to name this Byte My Server. Click next. I'm not going to add any library just yet. I'll approach that a little bit later in the video. And there we go. These are some different channels you can install, but you can check that out in another video of mine. There we go, everything is set up. Click done. Now you're all up and running and good to go. Almost. You really only took the first step. After installation, you might want to make a few changes. There's a few of them to cover here, so I'm just going to go ahead and dive into them. After you get your brand new server set up, there's a few things that you're going to want to change, or at least focus on just in case you need to change it later. So let's go ahead and go into settings on the top right of the page. We're going to click on server and I'm going to go ahead and click show advanced. First thing I always check is to make sure that I'm connected. So I'm going to go over here to connected and I'm going to sign in. And now it's going to see if I'm connecting to the server. If it's not connecting to the server, then this is where you would have to set up port forwarding. So you have successfully signed in your Plex, but were unable to reach it from your outside network. Now, this is something that you can manually specify a port in order to get your server working. Instead of fixing this right here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to link to a port forwarding video that I previously made that covers all your grounds as far as how to get connected from outside a network. Okay, so if we go over here to General, we're going to see the next thing that we can take a look at is the Plex data location. This is the folder of which all of the data for Plex is stored. This is good to know because if you need to move this to, let's say, a separate solid state drive, or you just want to be aware of where it is so you can keep an eye on how big it is, you always want to make sure you know where that is. After that, go ahead and head on over to transcoder. Now, here in the transcoder, you can change your transcoder quality to higher speed, higher quality, or make my CPU hurt. This is a good thing to take a look at when you may or may not have a powerful computer enough to feed all of your clients. This will change some of the basic encoding speeds to either make your CPU hurt, as it says, or go a little bit easier on you. So definitely change this depending on how your computer is, but I recommend whatever you change it to actually put it to a test. Load up maybe a couple different clients, see how it performs, see if it pegs out your CPU or not. You know, just kind of mess with it and see how it is. You may not have to turn it all the way down. You may be able to handle it, no big deal. While you're on the transcoder screen, another thing you want to consider is your transcoder temporary directory. I personally changed this to my SSD on a separate SSD because I was just having some speed issues when I was doing a lot of different things with my computer. And I drastically noticed a difference in seek time when I was able to change this to a faster location. You really don't need it unless you're under heavy load situations, because if you're going to point all of your Plex data to an SSD, or if it's already installed on an SSD, it probably won't matter. But if you are running a secondary SSD in your system and your primary is just a regular hard drive, it might be a good idea to move this transcoder temporary directory to some location on that SSD so you get better response times. Last but not least, head on over to Scheduled Task. Here's where you can set your backup directory. Now, you definitely want to change this to somewhere that you can access and remember easily. This is basically going to save all of your information and back it up, in this case, every 3 days. You can pick when you want it to run, when you want it to start running, etc., and this will handle everything for you. It's definitely good to have this set up and know where it is. That way, if anything ever happens, you can just restore from this. On the Plex website, you can see a few additional features you can get if you decide to buy into a Plex Pass. It offers some cool stuff like sync files to other devices or get access to free client apps. Features get added all the time, so I recommend you just check out the website. I feel like I'm forgetting something. Oh yeah, media. You actually have to have media to enjoy Plex, right? Wow. I'll show you how to add some movies to your nice shiny new Plex server. Before you can do that though, you actually need to have movies. It's a weird concept. Well, this video isn't about where to get media, but I will say that there's a program called MakeMKV that you can get from makemkv.com that works pretty well. Also, you can look into another one called Handbrake, which is available at handbrake.fr. These should get you started. One more side note before I show you how to add media folder is naming conventions. I'm going to link to a nice website on plex.tv that explains in depth how to prepare your media. But to make things simple for this example, I'm going to create a folder called Movies. Inside this folder, I'm going to make another folder called Back to the Future. This is where I'm going to store the video file. As for the name of the file, I'm going to go ahead and name that backtothefuture.mkv. This is more for good habit because Plex really focuses on the name of the previous folder for matching. Setting up your media like this allows Plex to scan the entire Movies folder, find each individual movie, and identify it properly. Using shorthand file names like bttf.mkv could result in a bad match and force you to manually correct them later on. Here, I'll show you how. Okay, to add a library, from your main screen, go over here till you see the plus sign. This is going to bring up your library page. Now you can choose what you want to add. So in this example, I'm going to add 2 movies, and I'm going to name this, I'm going to keep it named Movies. So click Next. Now this is going to ask for the folder that you want to add. So previously I created this folder, I made it on my desktop, and I named it Movies. So you're going to go to that folder, don't click any deeper into it, just go to the Movies folder and click Add. After that's done, hit Add Library. It's going to scan this folder, it's going to find every movie that's in that folder, and it's going to automatically add those to it. Okay, so I think I've covered just about everything you need to know to get your server up and running. I will continue to dive into more advanced features of Plex as I go along. You can even view some of the videos that I've already made, like right here or down below. I did put a lot of work into this video, so if you feel like being nice, pass me a like. And if you want to learn more about the awesome Plexiness later on, don't forget to subscribe to my channel. Thank you. The goal of this video is it basically allows you to watch your movies, TV shows, music, or even share your pictures, anything from your computer to any, son of a... First off, I have to say that if you want to install Plex, the software is basically a bitch smoking, which means the format is 100% compatible with your climate, which means the format is 100% compatible with your Now, this is a whole other video in itself. Jeez. Keep in mind though, passmark score requirements from Plex, they do have a little bit of a